What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. And join me to do just that is Nate Tice. Nate, what's going
Not too much. I am
on?
just in the middle of writing about the Chicago Bears and Caleb
Oh,
Williams. And it's been very fun and very refreshing. We've touched on them a little bit on our shows, I should say, and it's fun to deep dive into them and kind of see where they're standing historically. So no, doing pretty well.
I like it. Yeah, I'm sure that'll be a clickable piece. The Bears fans want to hear some good about Caleb Williams, and the haters, of which there are many, want to
Yeah.
hear want to argue with you about it and cite completion percentage and things of that nature. So that'll be good.
I don't know if you noticed, but Chicago sports fans really, or people really love their sports teams in that city. Like they're pretty. It's a big city with a lot of people, and they really like their sports. But yeah, no. Luckily, I'm on their side right now. But I always somehow turn into a villain with every fan base. It seems at some point. So we'll see when that happens. But right now, very rosy. Everything's great. Way to go, Bears. Way to go, Ben Johnson, who was one of your guys that you mentioned yesterday
That's
as a
right.
thing that you know.
I know that was a home run hire, and I also know that this is going to be a very rosy show as well, because we are talking some positivity here in the fantasy film room. First segment of the show, we're going to talk about some second half turnarounds on the offensive side of the football. We're going to go position by position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Second segment, we're going to talk about defenses that have turned things around here as we prepare to get to the end of the season. What are the defenses that we were maybe targeting in the first half of the year that we might need to back off, change our matchup-based expectations? Then we're going to talk through Thursday Night Football. We're going to leave a good chunk of time for that because this is actually an interesting Thursday Night Football game. And then we finish it up with Buzz is Building with Joel Smyth. So with that, let's dive into this week's Fantasy Film Room. All right, welcome to the Fantasy Film Room, presented by Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season with another year of Toyota Game Day giveaways. From NFL shop gear to even Brock Purdy's favorite Sequoia, Toyota is giving fans a chance to win big. Visit toyota.com/NFL to learn more. All right, so for today's Film Room, as I mentioned, we're trying to identify some players who are going to change their outlooks in the second half of the season. This could be some guys who are maybe breaking out, some rookies. This could also be some veterans with some potential role changes. So let's go to the skill position players first. We've got a whole big board here. If you're watching us on YouTube, we've got running backs, wide receivers. We've got the tight ends here as well. Let's read off the running backs here first. And we're not going to hit on all of these names because, number one, Nate, you've got some funky ass names in here, number one. And number two, it would take the whole show if we ran through all of these guys here together. So we compiled this list together. At running back, we have Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Bashal Tutin, Kyle Monangai, and Chris Rodriguez. I'm going to let you have the floor here first, pal. Okay. Which player do you want to highlight from this list?
Chris Rodriguez would be the one, because of after all that Bill hype, a lot of Bills. We've been talking about Bill for a while, and all of a sudden Chris Rodriguez has turned out to be like a guy that they're giving more and more use to, or more and more touches to. And I think it's just kind of where the Commanders are in this day and age with their team makeup, and I think they're just trying stuff a little bit. But I thought it was just interesting that they kind of have lowered, they've kind of changed the usage of these players. I mean, he had in the last game had 15 carries, 79 yards. They've given him touches, on and off throughout this year. He's a hammerhead that I think actually fits their offensive style better, or at least for the majority kind of touches. So I don't know. I think he's been an efficient runner. This is great. Jacob Gibbs, who always has great stuff, throwing out the rushing success rate stuff. But that is part of this Commanders offense, still has a good run game. Like that hasn't gone away, just in the blink of the eye with Jane Daniels being hurt. And I think just Rodriguez is just one. I think, probably people have him, but if not, it is a guy that I think is just going to get some steady diet of touches, and they're going to be good touches in this offense.
Washington is on a bye this week. Then week 13, they come out and they play Denver. Not great in terms of a matchup perspective. But after that, they get the Vikings, the Giants before they finish with Eagles, Cowboys, and then Eagles again. So you've got a couple matchups there, Vikings and Giants, two teams you can definitely run on there. So he might be good for one of those late bye week spot starts if you're looking at that like week 14 matchup, and then week 15 we're getting towards fantasy playoff time. Maybe Chris Rodriguez has a random moment there, because I agree with you that he is a hammerhead type, and it sounded like they kind of wanted to come into the season splitting the work between Rodriguez and Bill. And I think that we might see going forward a little just bit more of Chris Rodriguez, just to see like, hey, for next year, is he somebody that we can work a tandem running back sort of situation with?
I know why I wanted to highlight him. It's just some of these other guys that we threw out here is just kind of like, I feel like the Travion Henderson, or like I've talked about Kyle Monangai so much, I feel like on this show especially, but I just wanted to re-highlight him because it's turning into a Lions or a Falcons situation where it's like they have two backs that are viable every single week, where that Bears run game, like I said, I am writing about it, is a very good run game. It is just on running back runs. They're number one in rushing success rate this year. Like no other caveats, just running back runs. Better than the Colts, better than everybody. So it's like, I'm just trying to get Monangai in every way, shape, and form. And then other guys like Jordan Mason is just that more of a highlight of what the Vikings run game is now. Yes, we talk about McCarthy's struggles with the passing game, but the run game is real. And now that the offensive line is healthy, and if Kelly comes back even healthier, they got really everybody right now. And that run game is kind of churning on everybody. So I think it's just more of like not much a breakout, more like, start this guy every week with confidence, because I think that run game is going to be churning every week.
I'm so nervous about the Jordan Mason stuff. I'm glad you're at least willing to highlight him positively, because he was somebody I really liked heading into the year. And then I think the thesis of the play has just kind of decreased as the year has gone on, because
that's why I'm rekindling it a little bit.
So, I mean, Aaron Jones, obviously he's been good when he's been out there. He's been healthy. He's been effective. At the same time, I think you probably project him as the lead back. And then with Mason, I thought he'd be more of like a closer back for them. How many times are the Vikings going to be in closing situations here?
Right.
With JJ McCarthy. That's one thing where I like your point to bring up Monangai, because number one, I think you're dead on about that Bears rushing success rate. Of course, like it bears out in the stats, and even when you're watching it, I think that because the focus is always on Caleb Williams and which receiver is letting him down or which receiver is he missing, people do overlook that. Number one, I think DeAndre Swift is playing pretty good ball this year. I mean, he's still DeAndre Swift. All of the kind of gaps in his game they remain the same, but they are working well around what he does. And I think the offensive line has gotten a lot better. They were always better run blockers and pass blockers, but I think the run scheme and their ability to weaponize some of their talents has gotten even better. So Monangai, mentioning him, I think makes a lot of sense. Also because if Swift misses any more time, as we've seen he missed some time this year, Monangai would immediately become a fantasy starter. So he should be that Tyler Algier type, like 100% rostered, a what-the-heck flex in certain matchups. But with Mason, I just struggle that these next two games, Green Bay in Green Bay, Seattle in Seattle, maybe Washington week 14, that could be a moment. But like, tell me how they're not just going to be trailing these next two games. And we're talking about the running back for a bad offense.
It's I know it's the offense now. The passing game is just non-existent. They hit a couple of explosives every week. So it's just that once they do get into scoring range, they don't trust that quarterback with anything. So he's just going to automatically get touches like that. You know what I mean? I think just in valued or high high variance situations or whatever, high leverage situations. I'm sorry, that he'll be able to get a lot of touches. And also I'm just saying is that the run game is just going to be improving, that it's going to be the basis of their attack. They're going to play a lot of muck ball. And so I think when you play a lot of muck ball with a couple of explosives, the running back is the guy that gets kind of everything. And even on stuff like, because they're going to be emphasizing with him, this is more kind of people scouting here, is, hey, check it down. Take what's given to you. Where do the check downs go to? The running back. Are there going to be more screens? And I think just with Jones, you never know with the health stuff. That's just like Mason's the guy I'm betting on. I get it. It's not like I'm saying running back one, boom, this guy's finishing top 10 the rest of the year. I think he's just going to be a viable starter more than it would seem even with the matchups, just because of what their team in the negative that the team situation actually might bear out because of the type of running back Mason is.
So Kevin O'Connell typically is one of the most pass heavy coaches in the NFL. And that's a big reason why the Justin Jefferson stuff has always been awesome. You know, regardless of any quarterback who's been back there, as long as it's somebody that they trust even a little bit, you're firing. I mean, it's just whoever it is, whoever's been back there, whether it's
Nick
Sam
Mullins.
Darnold, all the way to Nick Mullins. Carson Wentz, even this year. Just keep firing that football. With JJ McCarthy last week, week 11, they had a minus 14% pass rate over expected, according to rbdsm.com. Like they were just taking that air out of the ball.
They've yet to throw the ball in like 7 or 8 short yard situations. They have yet to throw the ball. In most teams, that's like 60-40, something like that.
Third down with 1 to 2 yards to go, they had a minus 32% pass rate over expected in this last game. So it's just they're trying to establish that run. So I hope you're right, because I still have Mason rostered in a few places. I've just really lowered my expectations. So I hope you're right on that one. Let's talk about these 2 rookies though, because that's what people really want to know about. Travion Henderson and Bajal Tootin. Let's go to Bajal Tootin first, because he was the guy that you suggested. We got to monitor the health situation, but otherwise, man, it was really impressive last week what we saw with him.
Yeah, and again, looking, I think just even you could see it stat wise, of course, being on a fantasy show, but I think just the situations again is what is very telling with the young guys, and we talk about this a bunch. One is pass protection is always the one that's like, okay, especially for a running back, like that's going to be like if they give that to a rookie or a late drafted rookie, wow, that's huge. But the other thing is short yardage touches, because those are big situations, and they want to give it to somebody that they trust. So the fact that Bajal Tootin, who has had a fumble history in college, which hasn't, knock on wood, reared its ugly head in the pros so far, they're giving him multiple short yardage touches in big situations, 3rd and 4th downs. They're giving him screens. I think that's why I just think that they want him to take over this backfield. It's kind of feels it's like I'm revisiting a conversation we had in August about I was like, at some point it's going to end up being his backfield. But the thing is, we also talked about this at some point on the show, is LaQuint Allen has his role as the pass protecting back, a very good pass protection back. So Tootin's not going to get every single touch. They're going to have 3rd down passing stuff. He's not going to be in there. But I think it is significant that they are giving him stuff in short yardage when he is not. I didn't think he'd be that back originally, and I think he's better at it than Etienne is right now, which is significant. And the fact that he's taking care of the ball, he's doing the little things right. You can see he's very explosive. I think I'm more optimistic about this because it feels like the Jaguars' offensive line kind of, clean some things up. And that's why I'm more optimistic about with Tootin, because I know the ability's there, but now you can really see the indicators that the coaches are like, all right, like keep going. Like we're going to give you more touches, more of these high value touches that means a lot in these offenses.
Yeah, obviously they blew the doors off the Chargers last week, but even in the first half of the game, Bajal Tootin had 57% of the running back touches, as opposed to Travis Etienne was 43% in the first half of that game. So it was clearly an intent thing. He's been active around the goal line, and I just really loved the way they attacked the Chargers exactly how you should, like run that outside zone on the perimeter. And this team has been trying to hit those all season long, which again, I just love that from Liam Cohen, because Tootin and Etienne, that's definitely what you want more from them, as opposed to some of the gap-based run scheme that they did with Bucky Irving and the boys in Tampa Bay last year. So we'll love that ability to adjust. And I think this is an offensive line it's communication-based. Like the longer, it's not going to be an elite talent group, but as long as they can be right and tight, and the details, the communication, I think that can really hit. So he's definitely somebody that he should be rostered. He should be. I think he's even, if he plays going forward, he's even in flex consideration. And the matchups for him the next 2 weeks: Cardinals, Titans, both game on the road, but they are good matchups for running back. So it is fun. And by the way, I still think Travis Etienne, from a fantasy perspective, is still a good starter. Like I have him on teams, and I'm playing him every single week. And there's a little bit of like he's the DeAndre Swift to Kyle Monungai's Bajal Tootin, but I think Tootin is probably better than Monungai, and Etienne's probably a little bit better than Swift, if that makes sense.
Yes. That does make sense. Etienne is a guy that I think this is his best year. I think even just outside stat wise, as far as like being a running back, as far as being more reliable than he's been in the past, that's always kind of been a frustration with Etienne. He's still just a non-factor in pass protection and everything, but he is still explosive. I thought he's run between the tackles a lot better. But also just with Tootin and the rest of kind of the Jaguars' health. Brent Strange practiced again today. Harrison practiced. A lot of their linemen were practicing. BTJ practiced. Hunter Long practiced. So it's, after the Jaguars got banished, I think on Football 31, it's like, okay, I can talk about you guys again. Have a little bit more optimism again. That's what they do to us. Just every couple of weeks, it feels like they just go up and down, up and down.
I can't wait to see how they blow that last playoff spot that they're kind of hanging on to
right
now. I can't wait to see.
They're
going to lose it in such a devastating fashion. Let's put a pin in that and come back to it at the end of the season, because I can almost guarantee that that's going to be some sort of crying shame, and the Chiefs or the Texans or the Ravens will bounce them out.
Well, it's against the Titans too.
Super...
It's at home. You can feel it. You can feel it.
Horrible. Okay. People know how I feel about TreVeyon Henderson. So I'm just talking about him from a fantasy perspective and his role trending up and some of what I've seen from him when I've been watching him lately. But when you, Nate Tice, lock in on TreVeyon Henderson, because I know you're watching a lot of Patriots, he's playing next to your boy Drake May. So when you've seen TreVeyon Henderson these last few weeks, do you think he's done enough to kind of get that lead back job in New England when Ramondre Stevenson gets back in the mix here?
I think they're going to open up, like even with Stevenson back, it's going to be somewhat of a split. I don't really know what it'll be, but I do think that we talked about this, is that Henderson still is, he's still the same kind of back. It's just the situation's a little better now, is that he's much better on the outside runs. And the Patriots overall are much better when they pull players. I was looking up these stats recently, but they were the worst team if they don't pull anybody in terms of rushing success rate. And I think they were a top 8 in terms of like rushing success rate when they do pull somebody. And I think that's better for Henderson. Like in the weirdest way, a back like this usually is a zone back because they can bounce things. And in the weirdest way, he's better with pullers in front of him. And and you saw it in the Bucs game would be the best example because of those long runs. But I do think that Stevenson has a role in this offense. They trust him in a lot of ways to do things. So it's going to be at some portion of the offense. But I think what will happen is, why I'm saying all the outside run stuff, is that they go, okay, this inside run, we're going to keep Henderson in for a whole drive, as opposed to maybe like spelling him in situations. And it's going to be more like the splits that we've talked about, some of these other backfields, where they take the whole drive, as opposed to, it's second down and they're running inside zone and this guy goes in. It's going to be just kind of a little bit more fluid in that way.
Yeah, and next 2 matchups for him are awesome. Bengals, Giants. So, I mean, even if he gets kind of eased, like he's not quite the running back, the running back one right away is TreVeyon Henderson. He's still going to have some spots in that matchup to thrive. So I think he's a fantasy starter, even if Stevenson is back out there. I think he's 100% showed enough of that. Also really good in the pass game as well. And I just think he's earned the promotion. I think he wasn't playing well in isolation early on. There was no weird, like Mike Vrabel hated him or anything. Mike Vrabel has so much power in that organization. You think if he hated him, they would have drafted him 0%. 0%, that's what would happen. So I think that they were just easing him in there.
He's gonna defend him to death.
Defend him to the death. And I think, by the way, if he didn't like him, then we wouldn't even be getting these opportunities right now. They would be getting some random veterans. So I think that the fact that he's played so well and given them another dimension and like yet another way that they can find some explosives, we'll see more and more of him. So not really worried even if Stevenson gets back out there. Let's talk about these wide receivers. And I want to start here with one of the guys that I brought to the table here, which was Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams was like wide receiver 55 or something in the first, from weeks 1 to 8, I believe. Completely doing nothing. A lot of scrolling down. He's been targeted on fewer than 16% of his routes on the season overall. That has really changed the last 2 weeks since Dan Campbell has taken over the play calling. Nate, to me, I think there's something to that. I think that when Dan Campbell says, I have a feel for our players after taking that job from John Morton, I think he was talking about Jameson Williams. And we know Dan Campbell loves Jameson Williams. He doesn't shut up about him whenever he's talking in the offseason. So to me, I think there's some real stickiness to this, especially when you watch how he's gotten J-Mo rolling on some of the crossers. I think he's somebody that goes from being a mistake in the first half if you drafted him to somebody that makes you look really smart in the back half. Yeah,
I think this is, like you said, sticky. I think they had a drive against the Eagles where it was it was a 2-play drive. They hit a play action route to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and the next play they hit another route to Jameson Williams. Boom, boom, scored. And that to me was significant because it felt like a lot of what John Morton's flow, and we've talked about this a lot, but it was just like, all right, run. All right, there's the big play. All right, next one will be a run, or it'll be back to Amon-Ra St. Brown, or it'll be a screen. It wasn't aggressive. You know, it wasn't like the pedal didn't stay down. It felt like a lot of times he's like, okay, we hit our big play. Okay, here we go. Now we can kind of just roll back in. Who's supposed to be the big play threat in your offense? Jameson Williams. I also thought this is just an aside. Do you know they have drawn 0 pass interferences this year, the Lions? And last year, I think they only drew 1. That was just, that's interesting, right? I know. I was like, that
feels like a little bit of a quarterback stat, because I feel like Jared Goff doesn't
think of the
really
routes he
throw
throws.
Those. Yeah. He doesn't really throw those like tight windows, go routes on the boundary and
go balls.
Yeah. Like they don't do a lot of that.
I was looking it up because of the Chiefs, because they have drawn some PIs. Yeah, they only drew 1 PI all of last year for 5 yards. So they've had 1 pass interference called in their favor,
and yet they get banged on pass interference on the other side all the time.
Oh my god, like crazy! Yeah, their differential is probably hilarious, and they've only gotten nice words. They've only had 2 defensive holds called for them, I guess, in their favor. 3 illegal contacts. Last year they only got 1 defensive hold and 2 illegal contacts. I will say, Amon-Ra St. Brown, being the son of a bodybuilder, probably helps with that because he doesn't get held. That's why he's so good, because he's so freaking strong. Yeah. They just so what would look like a hold on another guy, he's just like, yeah, whatever. So sometimes guys are, you know, it's still, I mean, I shouldn't say LeBron because I think he gets some favorable calls, but I think maybe some of the Shaq stuff where it's just like they get the penalty because they don't get the foul because they're just so powerful, whatever. Anyways, this is a long aside to say this is very real, because I think Dan Campbell loves him. And I think this is part of the offense that they couldn't just go Amon-Ra, another duo run. They had something else had to pop to kind of open up the whole offense. And I know they played the Eagles and they didn't have a great performance. That is more an Eagles defense thing, and going 0 for 5 on 4th down thing. They were moving the ball. It was just as opposed to like, oh my God, sky is falling kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff's not going to complete 37% of his passes probably ever again in his life. That's the complete one-off. The other names we have here at the wide receiver position, Chris Olave, Jacoby Myers. You threw just Texans wide receivers out, and A.D. Mitchell. Very brave of you to say A.D. Mitchell after what he put on film last week, but I'll just throw that bucket of players at you there. Did you see Mike Renner, who works for CBS now, put like a cut up of A.D. Mitchell, and he was like, A.D. Mitchell was cooking last night. And he just cut the film right before the catch the ball arrived
every single time.
It looks like this great highlight film because he's getting open and everything, but then not catching the ball, which is kind of the A.D. Mitchell story. It was really good. But anyways, so I throw those bucket of players at you. Which one really stands out from Olave, Myers, the Texans wide receivers, and A.D. Mitchell that you want to highlight?
Might as well reverse order this. We'll start with A.D. Mitchell, because look at the schedule. And also, who else is the ball going to go to? And it's Tyrod Taylor starting now, so you're hoping for a little bit more passing game. But it's like if you're just desperate and you need a guy, or you're just like you need some curiosity on the bench as the season's rolling along, they got a juicy schedule, and it's just an opportunity thing of who they have that you might just get spike weeks. You know, that's kind of just what I'm betting on here. That's really it with the A.D. Mitchell tout. But that's the thing. When I kind of took this breakout list, you know, some of the guys are kind of like, I like some of your choices too, but it was like some of these things where it was just like somebody that just could truly surprise you, where you're like, I can't believe I'm starting this guy in a huge matchup, but it's viable. That's kind of what I was going for here. But that's what, like how Kayshon Boutte has been in the first half of the season when he's been healthy. He's healthy again. Or, you know, even Quentin Johnson for a minute. But now I'm saying for the second half of the season, a guy that for a couple weeks is
getting like that guy.
Alec Pierce, who, yes, impending free agency contract year, Alec Pierce, who has made 2023 Matt Harmon and Nate Tice look very smart. Alec Pierce. Totally. No, but that's why I just want to throw A.D. Mitchell out there. It's just kind of a more of like, hey, an opportunity thing might happen here for a couple weeks, just because it's just the Jets are funky. I get that, but there's not a lot of spots where the ball can go to. I know the inconsistencies and all that, but I think they're going to give them chances.
Yeah, they should. And they shouldn't just go away from him after one obviously disappointing performance. Especially, you got to wonder too if just Tyrod Taylor might throw a little bit more of a catchable ball. I realize A.D. Mitchell needs to bring some of those catches in, but with Fields, it's just I don't know that he throws the most catchable football. Like, let's
inconsistent thrower with inconsistent catcher. It's like it leads to that.
Hey, did you watch him with Anthony Richardson last year? You know, it's a lot of this. You just again, you just wonder if with a different quarterback things might look a little different for AD, because he does have. I think his separation skills are a little overrated, because when he gets open, he gets wide open. But there are still a lot of concepts that he does not execute at a high level. But still, somebody they should absolutely try to develop, and I don't think they should go away from it. I unfortunately don't think we see Garrett Wilson the rest of the season. So definitely makes a lot of sense there. We'll save Texans wide receivers for Thursday Night Football. And I think Jacoby Myers, obviously, Jacoby Myers, that's probably an easy one to just make the case for here real quick.
Oh, yeah. It's just that he can catch the football, and that's what the Jaguars have needed. That's literally it. And I know BTJ is starting to practice again, but of course, Travis Hunter's had the injury. I just think that there's going to be volume here. I mean, Parker Washington was getting touches. They're like, the ball is going to go. They're going to throw the ball, and he's going to be asked to do those in breaking routes. And it just sometimes happens. Sometimes a quarterback and a receiver just have chemistry. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, yep, Trevor Lawrence and Jacoby Myers have chemistry. Like, they just have that feel and timing and a feel for space, feel for how when the break on the route and when the ball comes out. Like, I know it's super early, but it's one of these where I'm very optimistic of where this is going to come. Like, I think they really need to re-sign him because I'm just like one of these things where I'm like, this really fits for what they need. So wanted to say he's very viable. He started the season as like a sneaky receiver 2, or like in my league where I really overly invested in guys in an auction league that you play as a receiver 2. I think he's back to that, even with other guys getting healthy again.
Let's quickly touch on these tight ends here. Colson Loveland, Mason Taylor, Gunnar Helm. Admittedly, Nate, these were all your suggestions, so I don't want to step on your toes here. So I think the Colson Loveland one is the one I can definitely co-sign the most.
Yeah.
Because he's good. He probably has the best hands on the team. I love Odunze, but he's made a couple mistakes at the catch point this year. I think it'll be fine long term. Not too worried about it. I think he does generally have good hands, but Colson Loveland has just attacked the football so well, and he's a freaking beast, dude. He's awesome player. So I think that's an easy case to make. Yeah, he really is. And
he's awesome.
I do wonder if, obviously, Cole Kmet's going to be a problem the rest of the year. Colson Loveland might be more of like a 2026 play, but even now, because he's so good and this offense is coming together, I still think he's worth, if you're in a bad spot at tight end. And I am on my Tucker Craft teams, I'm kind of riding Colson Loveland now, because I'm just hoping that the talent equals more touches.
We're in the same boat, my friend. Hunter Henry's got me through some weeks, but not so much now. All of these are kind of more of a second half into next year or further years, and all more of like a pleasant surprises in a pinch. Mason Taylor is the same argument I kind of made for AD Mitchell. It's like, who else is the ball going to go to? It's going to be a run heavy offense. I get that, but he's doing a lot where they want him on the field. And I think long term it's gonna be a good thing. He's gonna be just like he's gonna be like a Hunter Henry. Actually, that's actually like kind of what I envision, kind of like a guy that's gonna be Mr. 6 to 9 points in fantasy for a long time. But Gunnar Helm, I really wanted to talk about that. I actually think he might be viable in a pinch or a deep league or something of that sort in the back half of the year. Because again, who else is the ball going to in the Titans? You have to watch 2 rookie receivers. This is a rookie tight end as well. He's getting a lot of high value. No, it's not. I'm been waiting to write about Cam Ward. I told you just yesterday on Football 301. I've been waiting to write about him, but I've watched a decent amount, and I'm just like, God, this stinks. but Gunnar Helm, though, at least it's they're giving them choice routes, which is again an indicator that like, okay, we're giving you the high valued stuff, the stuff that we think you're going to do good on. So that's always okay. That's interesting. He's making the most of it. Cam Ward and him have chemistry, especially on third down. So he's a guy that I had like iffy interest on before the year. I've kind of kept my eye on. I think he's he's going to be on a good path even the rest of this year, where he's going to get even more touches. But I think in the long term, like he's a dynasty, like kind of maybe a Trojan horse candidate for some of you guys, if you want to just kind of like get like a interesting young tight end that you might want to just take a stab at.
No, interesting. Interesting. I really like it. He has 7 catches for 67 yards since week 8. Obviously, they were on their bye last week. Obviously, Chico Okonkwo has run more routes, but you just wonder if at some point, like Okonkwo is a holdover. Gunnar Helm is the guy that they drafted. The front office and obviously some of the coaching staff there is going to be gone next year. But still, you start to look towards the future. And I actually was listening to a podcast with Daniel Jeremiah recently, and he was saying that they know they need to get Gunnar Helm the ball. So, and if he's saying that,
nice.
he heard it from somebody.
So,
oh
yeah. If he's reporting something, it's take it to the bank.
100%. And I think the big thing too is just these rookie receivers. Number one, they're banged up now. Ilika Iomanner and Chimere DK are both dealing with some injuries. I think DK looks like a nice gadget player, but Iomanner just he can maybe be okay in the long run, but I mean, being out there is like not a big statement on the freaking Titans offense right now. So I think that Gunnar Helm has a chance to be a little bit like, he could be the most interesting of those three rather easily, even though he's a rookie tight end. So I like that call out there. There's definitely not a lot of fantasy shows talking about Gunnar Helm right now heading into week 12. All right, we are going to take our first quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about defenses that are trending up for the back half of the year. We're going to get into that right after this. All right, we're back. We're flipping to the other side of the ball. We talked skill position players who can have a nice finish of the season. Let's talk about some defenses here that we think are going to be better down the stretch than what they have been over the course of the year, because this is always a great time to do this, Nate, because when you're looking at matchups, you're picking up bye-week players, you're making start-sit decisions. That little number on the Yahoo app that's like this position ranks this, or this defense ranks this against this position, sometimes that stuff can lie to you guys, okay? And we've all been there. We've all done it, because these defenses, obviously offenses do it too. They change over the course of the year, but especially defense is so volatile, not just year to year, but within an individual season, that there could be some units that we were attacking in the first half that have really changed the course of their season. So we've thrown together 4 here: Ravens, Steelers, Cowboys, Eagles. If we have more, we can throw them out. But just to put the point on what these units have been so far, the Eagles are 8th in EPA per play allowed on defense. Yes. So, I mean, but that's the best one here. They were 13th.
And then the week before that, they were 17th. So it's more of a it's more just, can I just say real quick? I know I just cut you off. I'm so sorry, Matt. But it's honestly for the Eagles, it's just like, no, believe what you're seeing. This is real. This is not just island game hype. This defense is a top 6 defense, maybe top 5. I think as long as Jalen Phillips is healthy, this is a top 5, top 6 defense for the rest of the year. So that's more of like a buy the hype, believe in it. And I think I would even almost, I don't know about the Cowboys, but I was going to say almost a matchup proof type of defense where you're like, okay, I don't really like some of these streamers this week. I can at least be above board here, but maybe not against the Cowboys. But no, I do really like this defense the rest of the way.
I'm glad you cut me off, because probably the right thing to do here is to just take this from the first 9 weeks of the season, because I think that gives us a better sample size and proves the point a little bit more. So if you look at the first 9 weeks of the season, Eagles were 17th in EPA per play allowed. The Steelers were 24th, the Ravens were 25th, and the Cowboys were 31st. Those are, again, defenses. We want to attack those bottom half defenses. I think we're looking at this as maybe not all of them, but some of them could completely flip and become, maybe top 10-ish, at least top half defenses in the NFL. Yeah. But let's start with the Eagles, because we were just hitting on that. But I think the case to be made of why this unit is different is rather obvious. They trade for Jalen Phillips, which is huge. They've made some other changes along the way. But that Jalen Phillips addition is just like, it's just, you felt it right away in the first game. Nakobe Dean being back, I think, also has been a big deal as well. And it just, they still have that, maybe hole with Adoree Jackson at the other corner spot. But regardless, they're still getting a ton out of just even Nakobe Dean being back, but especially the Jalen Phillips trade.
They have, like, I don't think they're great against the run. And so I would say that's my one Eagles thing, is that if you have, say, like a running back and you're deciding between, like a flex spot or something like that, it's not a total like, well, I heard the Eagles defense is top 10 now, I can't start them. It's more, I still think that's one where you can get them a little bit if it's a team with a good run game. So I will say that, but but I do think that, I mean, just this is the beauty of having a pass rush, I guess, is Jalen Phillips gets in there, and also Adoree Jackson just doesn't seem as bad because now he doesn't have to cover for as long. Yeah, it's kind of like, I know what I would want to invest in. And also on top of it, Quinyon Mitchell is making a real case to be defensive player of the year is Myles Garrett, but I would say a case to be on the podium. Like, Quinyon Mitchell is playing phenomenal football this year, so it is That
How
is
many
the thing
corners
that
do you think are playing better than him right now? Like, because I think when I've watched receivers going against the Eagles, it's just like I think he's been the best. Yeah, been the best corner in the league so far, and it's just tough because obviously this next matchup is the Cowboys, and we've even seen what happened back in Week 1. You wonder how different it's going to be, right? Because obviously Week 1 it was George Pickens faced Quinyon Mitchell a lot because he's the pure perimeter receiver. Nothing's really changed with that, but you wonder how they'll adjust to that CeeDee Lamb matchup after he just was taking them apart early on in that game.
Yeah, and also Jalen Carter's playing. So
that helps.
That was original Spitgate. We've had now 2 Spitgates this season, as I actually spit as I say that. I think too, I would actually, the guy would be Ferguson would be the guy I would be like leaning towards of the trio of the Cowboys, because like you mentioned, Quinyon Mitchell, CeeDee Lamb would probably get a lot of opportunities based on the zone that they play, but Cooper DeJean, it's kind of, he's very good too. So it's kind of like, but also it's one of these things where it's more like good on good. Usually still they are able to get some out of it. You start your stars, all that stuff. But I do think that Colin. But I do think the tight end Ferguson is one area you can kind of get him in, against these linebackers in coverage. Their linebackers are better going forward, so it's kind of that intermediate area you can kind of get after him. Usually, the tight end. I think Ferguson's like one of the few with Dak throwing him over the middle that you kind of get there too.
Yeah, a lot of seam balls coming for Jake Ferguson in this matchup. That makes sense to me. Just schedule for the Eagles rest of the way. We got the Cowboys this week. Bears week 13. Chargers week 14, Raiders week 15. Nobody cares. Commanders, Bills, and then Commanders in week 18. So definitely some wide receivers we're going to have to worry about whether it's a Dunze in week 13, the week 14 matchup. That might be another QJ0 spot. He's given you 2 of those in recent weeks. And then not too many wide receivers on the perimeter to care about once we get into the late part of the season. Let's talk about the Ravens defense here, because this feels like an annual thing now the last 2 years with the Ravens, where they start out where we're just hammering them. And I think I said this to you at one point. Maybe it was on this show, maybe it was on 301, or maybe I said it to somebody else and different entirely. Who knows? It's all running together. But this is why I think I said that Kyle Hamilton was one of my top 5 defenders in the NFL when we did that show this past off season, because and he honestly was in contention for maybe even my number 1 spot, just because he feels like the player that whenever they get into trouble, it's just, all right, break glass in case of emergency, change his role. Yep. Last year they put him more at safety. This year they brought him kind of more into the box, and that's helped change the defense in addition to some other things here. So this defense definitely deserves a shout out for changing its fortunes, because like I said, they were 25th in EPA per play in the first 9 weeks of the season.
Yeah, they've really turned it up, and they went from literally the worst run defense in terms of success rate, like in the last decade, to now being in the top half of the league. I think they're even top 10 now. And that's really just, Hamilton, Draymond Jones is another guy they brought in, and he's really helped against the run, kind of fitting what they needed. They've done a lot of things where it's even the Ravens have, just because of what the AFC North is as well, have just kind of kept themselves alive, kept themselves afloat enough that it's like, I think the defense, I've been struggling to where I would kind of like rank them right now in my head.
Yeah.
Like even their DVOA is not that high, but I think they're much better than that. Now
they're
I think
third in EPA per play allowed since week 8. So, I mean, they're definitely somewhere in between those 2 numbers.
And they played the Bears. They played the Bears really well. They played McCarthy.
Yeah. They got the Shedeur bump last week. So,
and they got Shedeur last week, but no, I think it's more like, they're like a top half of the league defense. I would say 12th, give or take. But no, I think this is real. I think that they have made the changes personnel wise, not just Hamilton, but also the Draymond Jones addition, like I said, and some of the other guys. They got away with Owe as well. Odafe Owe, they traded him to the Chargers, and I actually think that's kind of helped them in some ways, because they stopped kind of like messing around with that, and they kind of got a little grittier, added a little more beef against the run, which I think was their big issue. I think Roquan Smith has played himself into better shape, which I think is notable as well. No, it's very real. I joke, but I'm serious. Maybe that's part of it too, is that their captain on the defense plays himself into shape for 2 seasons in a row. That's why they get better.
I mean, seriously though, he's just played significantly better. than he did to start, certainly last year and even to start this year. The start of this season, I was like, oh boy, we've hit the cliff with Roquan, but I think he really got himself, as you mentioned, back into shape, and he's played some great football. Was awesome, I think, in that Bears game when they came out of their bye week. That was, and I was like, oh, is that a one-game revenge bump for Roquan? But no, he's been good these next few games as well. Their schedule coming up, we got the Jets this week. Oh boy. Bengals on Thanksgiving, Steelers, Bengals again, Patriots, Packers, and then they finish with the Steelers in week 18. So definitely some offenses that, we like in terms of in the fantasy postseason. It'll probably be Joe Burrow practiced in full today. We'll do more discussion on that later on the show with Boone tomorrow. If he's actually going to play this week, we'll see about that. But he probably, if he's trying to play this week, he's probably going to be back for week 15. So Bengals, Patriots, Packers, there's definitely some players we care about in fantasy in those matchups.
Yeah, no, this defense is, they have enough. That's the thing. Nate Wiggins is a good player as well. So even outside receiver stuff, like they have a lot more answers than they did a few weeks ago. Like, especially if you're a guy that has to thrive in a slot, like that is kind of like a non-starter now. Like, there's certain matchups that they really feel like they take away if you're kind of like vying for certain flex spots.
Next one I want to talk about is the Steelers because, I've slammed on this defense this year all the way in the offseason. Hating on the Steelers defense was one of my favorite things in the offseason, and it paid off early in the season. I mean, like I mentioned, they were one of the worst defenses in the league. They were getting just taken to work every single week, especially we all saw it on that Thursday night game against the Bengals. But since week 8, they are 12th in EPA per play. So they have certainly improved. What has happened with that defense to make things a little bit better lately?
Yeah, it's it's such like that's the thing is usually I feel like we talk about offensive stuff and then it's just like one of the teams I associate you the most is the one you despise the most to talk about, which is the Steelers, which is just so funny.
That says a lot about me. And it doesn't say anything good. So I just want to get that on the record.
It is just very funny because you're just like, this defense, they're 12th now. I think too, when the guy that and I was actually just kind of trying to see, actually, this now has me interested. You sparked an idea. Alex Highsmith, it feels like when this defense has Alex Highsmith on the field, it's just turbocharged and actually just has a little bit more venom to it. And then when he's not on the field, it's like, okay, it's fine. Herbig has some moments. TJ Watt. I think their interior has played better as far as Hayward, Benton, Harmon. I think Benton's played a lot better in recent weeks. Weird thing the first half of the year, where he just was like, he went from a young player I really liked to like a non-factor whatsoever. Like what happened to you? And I don't know if it was health or what, but anyways, I think even they have certain weaknesses you can pick at though. I do think if you go against like a team that's like a heavy play, if they're a heavy play action offense, you can really get the linebackers. I think you can target running backs. I don't have a stat for this. Is more eye test. I think there's just one of these things where they just have things you can pick at. If you have outside receivers that JPJ doesn't follow, cause whether it's Darius Slay or whoever out there, because they moved Ramsey to safety, I think that they're just very pickable, but they are playing better, but they are just have like a lot of very matchup based things that you can get after.
Yeah, and I do think acquiring Kyle Duggar and putting him as like an every down safety on the back end really helped. And then moving Jalen Ramsey to safety, I think really was the thing that sort of sparked the turnaround here. But it sort of was a cascading effect. And what I mean by that is when you watch this team early in the season, I'm sorry, Ramsey was just getting cooked. Like I just thought he was a big problem, especially letting guys get open very quickly. I think we briefly texted about this at one point, that Cooper Kupp even – this was like his only good receiving day of the season was against the Steelers. And like, that's a guy that cannot separate versus most people, but he does still have the technique at the line of scrimmage to get open really quickly. And that allows you to get the ball out fast. But I think what you want to do if you're this going against this defense is you want to get that ball out fast because you don't want then the guys who can wreck the game up front, Highsmith, Herbig, obviously TJ Watt. You don't want those guys to then start crashing down on you because you can get like multiple pressures from different levels. And then you can really put quarterbacks in a blender. I think that's what we saw in the Colts game in week 9. It's what we saw with Joe Flacco last week. Because again, you think about it, week 10 against the Chargers, 2.2 time to throw for Justin Herbert. He was getting that ball out of there to the playmakers quickly, and they were able to get past that matchup. So that makes sense to me because you just want Ramsey back you just want him on the back end. You don't want him being covering man early on in the downs. Like that's not what you want from him at this point. So I know Chris Collinsworth had a whole thing. I think when they had that game recently, it was the Chargers game. We're talking about, Ramsey's going to want to get involved in the play at some point. I'm like, nope, keep him back there. keep him back there.
You just sparked a memory. Collinsworth, I credit him, because I get it. Like he has kind of narratives he wants to talk about during a game and commentary. And it was like something that just didn't apply to Ramsey at all. Ramsey was like a cover 2 safety in the back. And he was like, and this play happens up front because of Ramsey's presence back there. And it was like, Ramsey's not even in the picture. And it was like a run play. And I was like, no, I get what you're trying to do here, but no, that wasn't it. But no, that is, I always thought that he was going to transition to being a quality safety.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they would do it at the beginning of the season as opposed to trying to do what they did, because that's right. Torrey Horton torched him. You mentioned, Cooper Kupp torched him. I mean, multiple guys have torched him this year. So like, I think being on a safety he's a very football aware player, a very smart player. So like, let's use that. Let him transition. I want to see it. I think he has some potential to be a really good player back there.
Matchups coming forward for the Steelers. Bears this week. That will be really interesting to see. Caleb Williams has been very good at avoiding sacks. Really, every week there's like a couple highlight sack avoidance plays. That will be key in this matchup. And can they get the ball out fast? They have definitely been, you've mentioned it, they've been a very explosive offense. I think this will be one of those weeks where Ben Johnson's going to focus on, let's get the ball out fast and let's execute that quick game. So that will be a fun test there. Then they get the Bills, they get the Ravens, the Dolphins, Lions, Browns, who cares? And then the Ravens again in week 18. So definitely some interesting matchups in terms of which quarterbacks want to get that ball out quickly, because that's going to be the key, I think, to beating this Steelers defense. Real quick, last one to talk about here, Dallas Cowboys. They do not have some magic turnaround here in the metrics from week 8. They're not 31st. They're 26th. Okay. So,
hey,
but I know it's the Raiders, and the other team that I've bagged on more than the Steelers this year has definitely been the Raiders. I think I have something negative to say about the Raiders on 301 every week somehow. But, and again, I know the Raiders are not a serious operation, but this defense looked really good on Monday Night Football. They have Quinnen Williams now, as you and I talked about yesterday. I think you and I quickly found out that we're a lot higher on Quinnen Williams than maybe other people that cover the sport over the last couple of weeks. How much do you put stock into this defense potentially being, again, I'm not going to say a good defense, but no longer an outright embarrassment every week?
Yeah, they're not going to be the Bengals defense. Like that is like significant, because if the Bengals didn't exist, like this defense was that embarrassing for the first half of the year. It really was, where it was just like, all right, who's starting against them? Yep. Start them, like just everything, like let launch. It's gonna be great. But I think the Quinnen Williams, like you said, I think he's a top 10 defender. So it's like he's good against the run too, which his defense has needed for so long. So if you have Osa Ogazuwa next to him, now you got a really good pairing in the middle there, and they're actually good against the run in different ways. Osa is a hit or miss, boom bust gap shooter, while Quinnen Williams is a mauler. They have weaknesses still. Like, still linebackers aren't great. Still corners are still like. I actually seeing this depth chart just remind me they played Siobhan Ravel, their day 2 pick, who I had as a top 30 player in this draft class. It was just that he had injuries. That's why he hasn't played yet. But he has a lot of talent. So that actually just might be you have to have improvement. You have to have unexpected boosts. And that might be one, because that's what they need more than anything, is these corners to like just be something. So I do think, though, that it's not just a set and forget it against this Cowboys defense. Like, oh yeah, this running back's going to go for 120, like guaranteed against this defense. It's not. I think that against the run, I think they're going to end up being more like average against the run, but I think against the pass, you can still get them just because of what they have. But I don't think they're just a total joke. They're just more of like a below average defense now. And Quinnen Williams rocks. Just got to emphasize that.
Absolutely. I think you felt the difference right away having him in there. Eagles this week, Chiefs in week 13, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, Giants. So there's definitely some test spots. We're going to test this theory, whether it's the Eagles this week, the Chiefs next week, and then Vikings, the Lions. That 3-week stretch here, these next 3 games, Eagles, Chiefs on Thanksgiving, and then the Lions. That will be a big test in terms of this defense and whether they can get to average. And I still think, by the way, this will be a shootout team. This defense is not going to turn to the point where the offense is then going to have to take the air out of the ball. So I know it's been great having this defense on the other end of it while Dak Prescott and George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb went to work. But we saw on Monday night that when their defense is dominating, these guys are still the ones that are going to get the football first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so forth. So not worried about that from a fantasy standpoint. All right, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we've got a Thursday night football game to preview with 2 really interesting offenses that made some changes the last few weeks. We'll get into that right after this. All right, we are back. It's time to preview Thursday night football. Bills at Texans. Bills are 6-point road favorites. We got a 43.5-point over-under. And yeah, Nate, usually I'll pull the curtain back for the people out there. A lot of times when we're doing this show, like, we can breeze through Thursday night football. Let's leave a lot of meat for the first 2 segments of the show. I actually think this game is really worth talking about. This looks like an interesting game on paper for sure. Let's talk about the Bills first here. They changed things up with their offense last week, changed up the receiver room. Did you see anything new or anything you noticed with Keon Coleman getting healthy scratched? Some change-ups in the wide receiver room there.
Well, also, did you have Tyrell Shavers in your latest reception perception? Did you?
Dude, I taped reception perception the show with subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you don't get enough of me already, I got another show as well. Just taped that with James Coe earlier today, and he's like, "Hey, I'm sure you haven't watched him, but I'd love to talk some Bills and Tyrell Shavers." I was like, "Actually, thanks for visiting the website. I put up something about him literally last night." So yeah, I've charted perfect. Tyrell Shavers' 11 routes that he ran last week because I'm a loser.
Hey, you caught the one late one, or you catch one big one, you're going to stand out in people's minds, just like Ryan Flournoy. No, but I that's really what I just kind of noticed with this team, and also just Palmer being back as well, and you can feel some steady eddiness. All 22 wise, I'm halfway through the Bills-Bucks game, and a little past halfway. And it's just one of these things where it's just like Josh Allen was hysterical in that game, where it truly was the Josh Allen experience. Just woo, Professor Chaos every step of the way. And so when I'm watching the team, though, it's like it's just a good offense, even with those chaotic moments. And I just think that there's sometimes they run mesh too much, which is 2 crossers and everything, but that's just more of a schematics thing than anything about fantasy relevance or anything offensive relevance. This offense is still cooking. They're figuring out different ways to use their receivers. I think the receivers are also blocking hard and doing the dirty work, which is still good for the run game. And also we see the swing touchdown that goes for a long distance because everyone's blocking still. So it's still all the little things are there, but I don't think there's anything like big picture takeaways. It's kind of more of the same, if that makes sense, where it's like everybody eats, okay, everyone's blocking for each other, a lot of bubbles, a lot of flats, a lot of screens. Everybody's kind of doing a little bit of everything type of offense right now with the little Shavers out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, Shavers one, yeah, you mentioned the big play, came off a scramble drill. And what a freaking throw from Josh, by the way.
Oh, unbelievable.
I remember that. How many other quarterbacks make that throw, much less actually hit that throw? Maybe 0 other than Josh. I mean, it was an insane throw. And you know what? To Shavers' credit, he good extension on some passes, caught the ball cleanly, and that's been a bit of an issue for some of the other guys in the room. So I think it just makes a lot of sense that, and he's a guy that plays special teams, so he's been involved in the rotation anyways. 6'4", 211. He's a big dude with some long strides. He definitely wastes too much movement in his routes. But again, just made the plays. Made the plays when they counted. Curtis Samuel's not going to play in this game because, of course, he had one good catch, and it's like, well, that's it. That's Curtis Samuel's contribution.
And a good block.
Yeah, I know. And Shavers' big catch, not the big one for the touchdown, but one of his big dig routes that he caught. Samuel cleared that space out on the full speed motion. He ran that love of the game route. So he was contributing. And of course, anytime Curtis Samuel stacks a little bit of momentum, time to get hurt again. So he's going to miss this game. I don't know if Keon Coleman's going to play. I mean, they really ran with ran to the insiders and said, hey, make sure you tell everybody he missed a Friday meeting. We were planning on playing him before that. But I got the sense leading into the week they were thinking about healthy scratching him anyways because they wanted to get Gabe Davis out, but Mecole Hardman's not going to play. So there's a chance Coleman's active for this game, but he might just fall into the rotation now at this point. So I think it's been over for him, but it's more over now.
I could see got told because how game plans go and install. Wednesday, you recap on Monday, you review the previous game. Tuesday's sometimes you don't have a walkthrough, but if you do have a walkthrough, it's just the first install to the next game. Then Wednesday is a full normal down and distance practice. Then Thursday is a red zone third down practice. I bet you that he got told on Thursday that he's not going to be in the game, and then he misses the Friday meeting, the team meeting, because he's pouting. I'm not saying anything about Keon Coleman. I shouldn't say pouting, but not happy with being told that. And I think that's just one of those where it's like, well, that doesn't help your case, dude. And we're going to let people know that, I think that's kind of what happens too. It's like, all right, you just gave us an excuse kind of thing. So I think we're on the same wavelength there because it was a little too tidy and the reporting timeline didn't make sense because it was like healthy scratch. Oh, and then he missed a team meeting. It's like, okay, no, they use that. Like, they're just covering.
I mean, Brandon Beane had already just texted all those guys last week telling them like we almost traded for Jalen Waddle. So it was really easy to just hit him right back up. It was very easy to get that done. So
God forbid you get somebody to stop the run, but let's make sure we get another receiver. I don't think
really tried, guys.
Has he understood that his quarterback, gets Gabe Davis back, and there's a reason that he likes Gabe Davis back? He likes big receivers. I don't know why he's getting all these small, fast guys.
That's why they drafted Coleman. That's the problem.
I know. Yeah, true. Very true. Yes, I know. Yes, actually, that just ruins my whole point.
I was going to say, I think you just explained the brain pretzel that Brandon Beane has found himself in. So we'll see what this receiver room looks like. But will definitely be interesting there. I want to talk about the Texans offense too, because Davis Mills has kind of had this unit cooking the last couple weeks. I know the matchups have been good. I totally recognize that. You go against the Titans, that's a preseason game, but still, I think Davis Mills is a good backup. He was not cut out to be an NFL starter, but he's a totally fine backup quarterback. So I understand why he's been able to run the offense pretty well.
I completely agree with you. Davis Mills was one of those where he got because he started and had did some okay things. He got kind of almost like people were like thought he was a little better than he was, and then all of a sudden he became kind of a laughing stock, oh, Davis Mills, ha ha ha. But actually watching him, no, I agree with you. The last two games I've watched, these starts, I thought last week he had some real moments, like not just safe moments. I wouldn't say it was all perfect. He had a couple moments where he kind of got discombobulated, but I think he's been a lot more aggressive than he was when he was young, which happens with some younger, as quarterbacks get older and just kind of knows what his role is. Like, whatever, I know I'm the backup, I'm paid, cause he just got an extension too. So it's like, all right, so you can see some confidence in executing it all. So no, I agree that it's not like a Jake Browning, where it's like, oh my God, the offense gave it function. What we're about to see with the Browns even more this week. But it's just more like he can operate the offense to what it is right now. And I would say the offensive line is still not great, still bottom 10, but it's not an abomination right now. It's actually, there's been some improvement with the offensive line, which has been encouraging, which is like why Nico Collins has been able to actually have some catches because Davis Mills can stand up and actually deliver the football, which makes me encouraged to see once Stroud gets back in there.
Yeah, there's definitely like a narrative going around that is CJ Stroud actually worse for the offense than Davis Mills? I think people are still just not realizing how good Stroud is.
Loves the backup.
Everybody loves the backup, man. But again, to Davis Mills' credit, he's kept this offense viable, and for that reason, even though this is certainly a difficult matchup from a pass defense standpoint, I still think Nico Collins can keep his momentum rolling. He's been awesome the last few weeks. He's just been a good test case of why you trust that elite talent. God, if he has a bad game on Thursday night and we start to get the negative Nico narratives again, I'm going to be so annoyed. So that's definitely on my radar. Anything else you want to highlight? He was so good last week. He's so good. He's so
yeah,
good.
He's so good.
Awesome the last 4 weeks. Anything you wanted to talk about the Texans wide receivers in the second half segment? So anything else you want to note from this receiver room?
Yeah, Higgins has been a little been nice. I just kind of just wanted to talk about them. I still know the Jalen Noel stuff. I know they talked about him again today about usage and everything. It's just like I know what he is. I think you know what he is. I think everybody knows that he's going to end up being a good player. But I think Higgins has been it's been steady. Like actually just a little more to him. Like he's been winning on what the stuff he has to win. They designed plays for him again. I think in the red zone he got the touchdown if I'm just remember it right. Yeah, he had a touchdown there. Like you can see, he has some chemistry with Mills a little bit, and it's just been nice. I just want to kind of like highlight those young receivers. I also think Hutchinson has been actually like viable. Like not the most amazing player in the world, but actually again another player that's been steady. Now that the quarterback has been staying upright, like I do think that it's just been like, oh, I actually get to enjoy these receivers play a little bit. And so that's kind of why I wanted to highlight that. It's like even in that section earlier, it's more like I'm not sure which one I'm saying buy, but I'm saying I'm more bullish on all three than maybe I was a month, 2 months ago because I thought the offensive line was unworkable. Now it's a little bit workable, so that's helping it out.
Yeah, just looking at Higgins in the rookie report that I put out for RP, like he does have some good stuff in the intermediate area. I just think his like quick separation is not great.
Yeah,
and then he
no
doesn't
underneath
get
routes.
Open long. Yeah, no underneath routes. And then if it's a long ball, it's going to be contested. And he does have good. He does great. He has great hands. We talked about that even when we were a little bit lower on him as a prospect compared to some of our peers. He probably had some of the best pairs of hands in the class, and so that's definitely something that has flashed, I think, at the NFL level. But he does have some good work on stop routes. I think he drops his weight really well and bigger in breakers, which you can definitely get the Bills on these bigger in breaking routes. So there's a chance he pops up for something here. And yeah, I would love.
You just reminded me something. Sorry. Well, I meant to put something in the doc. I want to see if we can get it out in this section right here. All right, sorry, but I'll explain what this graph is if we can get out there.
We'll see if they can get it up here on the stream. I was just saying the last thing on the Jalen Noel stuff is it's like, yeah, I'm not going to waste my mental energy wish casting him to play more when he is not playing more. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully he gets a chance. We'll see what happens. But elsewhere, how do you feel about Woody Marks in this matchup? Because that's something that people are talking about from a fantasy standpoint. Obviously, he's gotten a lot more opportunity lately, which has been good to see. And the Bills give it up to everybody on the ground, including Sean Tucker's annual legendary fantasy performance last week.
And it was a highlight reel for him and Tristan Wirfs, dude. Like it was like there's something about Sean Tucker that he's just putting some. I don't know who to compare him to. Like there's got to be some basketball player from the 90s where it's just like always known as for dunking as opposed to anything else. Like that's what Sean Tucker is. Just like he's going to put somebody on a poster. Somebody's going to be on a poster. Because the Saints game last year was one of the funniest games that's going to live in my memory for forever. Just like what happened. Like it was just bodies everywhere. But no, I do think that although I think Woody Marks is limited as a player, we talked about these rookie running backs a few weeks ago. I do think his upside is limited long term. This situation is he is the only one that I think again is viable, and also I just think that he's steady. Like he's okay. Like and that's the thing. But against this Bills defense, okay is good. Like okay is very playable because I think you can kind of run any running back against this defense. So so they have the graph ready. So I looked this up on True Media. This is the explosive passes allowed by the Bills this season by their defense. Anyone knows the common trend over the middle of the field with their explosive passes? I had to share this somewhere, and I thought it was perfect for this Thursday night show because I was just curious. I was watching him. I'm watching him against the Bucs. I told you I watched the first half of the game, all 22, and I'm watching. I'm like, man, you can pepper the middle of the field there, and like some of them were incompletions. Like this wasn't even the explosive passes, and sure enough, you can mostly tight ends. And that's why some of the props I have are Dalton Schultz overs. I'll just put it that way, is because of that, where I think he can, even I just talked about all these receivers. I think that's like going to be like, hey, against backup QB, they usually like their tight ends. And I think that's very, very, again, viable against his defense. But yeah, I had to share that because it was pretty funny how the middle of the field looks against the Bills defense.
Okay, well, no, this is really good for two reasons. One, because obviously Nico Collins, I feel like they've finally gotten him going on these bigger in-breaking routes. Finally started to get to those. And Davis Mills has done it the last 3 weeks. Nico Collins has been targeted on 27.7% of his routes, which of course is the number one mark on the team. But number two is Dalton Schultz at 25.2%. And I love your props here. You've got Dalton Schultz over 4.5 catches at plus 110. And you've got 50 plus receiving yards, plus 155. And I mean, he's averaging 60.3 yards per game the last 3 weeks with Davis Mills under center.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is pretty interesting.
It's not like the Bills defense is amazing. It's not like they've been putting up these huge performances. So I know that one was curious to me. And I also had Woody Marks over 1.5 receptions, minus 155, as kind of a quarterback not being aggressive, checking it down. This defense wants you to check it down. That's why it's minus 155. So there's something that's a little better out there, but I do think he'll get some checkdowns throughout this game.
Well, you just got parlay those two together. You gotta get your odds up there a little bit. That's the I'm not a
Woody
professional
Marks
gambler,
receiving ladders. We'll get to that sicko. Well, actually, I'll cap off because I know we gotta wrap it up. I'll cap off my my sicko play. I like kind of just throwing these darts. Jackson Haas, the blocking tight end for the Bills, anytime touchdown, because I think once they get into the red zone, the Bills are just going to try and go bully ball. And trying to just go big bodies, big bodies, big bodies. So when that happens, you get the play action. That's when you get the little cheapy, touchdown to the backup tight end. And Josh Allen, trust him. He's giving him some targets. So I do. It's not like he's a total nothing burger there. So yeah, it's plus 1,000 anytime touchdown. Jackson Haas. Figure that's a fun little dart throw.
Oh my God! If that happens, everybody better tweet at us. I better
my favorite thing of the week when you guys tweet at me when we actually do hit some of these. It's my favorite thing. I love it because I'm like, oh,
I love seeing them that people just tweet at you and then I see it on my timeline, you quote tweet it or something, because that is very.
Because I'm so excited.
You've had some really good ones. You've had some really good ones, and highlighting this Thursday night game, which I said was going to be a really good game and fun to break down for both sides. And I think we did do a good breakdown for both offenses. Finishing up with, hey, tight end props on Thursday Night Football. That's the Nate Tice special, especially Jackson freaking Haas anytime touchdown. So Nate, appreciate you, buddy. You're writing Cam Ward. That's this week that people can check that out.
No, I went Caleb Williams, different number one pick. I went Caleb Williams and the Bears. Really, just the Bears offense, I should say. Really focus on the run game and how they're being so explosive. Basically, it's a lot of fun to watch. So yeah, that's why I won't shut up about it.
Okay, perfect. Well, fantasy folks will definitely want to check that out. And if you want to hear us talk about Cam Ward, we did that on Football 301. So make sure to subscribe to that show wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we say goodbye to Nate for now. We're going to take one more quick break. When we come back, Joel Smith joins the show for this week's edition of Buzz is Building. We get into that right after this. Welcome to Buzz is Building with Joel Smith. Every Wednesday, Joel joins us for the last block of the show to provide 5 players with some buzz that you need to keep an eye on heading into Week 12. Joel, what's going on, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Working in football for a living, so I'm happy.
Hey, it's better than having a real job. That's what I always say. It's better than working on the railroad. True. So there's a lot worse that we could be doing out there. We've got 5 players to talk about here tonight, starting with Jackson Dart, quarterback of the New York Giants.
I'm excited. Yeah, Dart, I wrote a couple weeks ago about just how good his rushing has been. Phenomenal, really. If we look past at the last 4 years, the percent of fantasy points from rushing for a quarterback. Justin Fields is the top 2. Last year, Jalen Hurts at number 3, 46%. Dart is at 45% of his fantasy points coming from rushing. But then he had the injury, the concussion. And on top of that, the coach firing. So that's what makes me a little bit nervous, because at the end of last year, what we saw with Drake May, they weren't designing any runs for him at all. And this year, Dart, as you just saw, so much of his production has come on the ground. Before the bye week, he had 2 times as many red zone design carries as any other quarterback since he started. The design rate in terms of his rushing, number 1 in the NFL for quarterbacks. So much is relying on that. And that's a little bit of the worry now, is with the new coaching staff and then being 2-9, him coming off an injury. Do they hold back on that a little bit? Because in terms of his fantasy passing points, it's the 31st best.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up, because I feel like nobody wants to talk about this, because everybody likes Jackson Dart, and obviously he's been such an awesome answer as a fantasy quarterback. I popped in to do the rankings this week, and consensus-wise, he's immediately right back up there to being a quarterback 1. And I get it. It's not like we're flush with a bunch of options right now. In fact, we've got some really questionable options at quarterback at this point. But with Dart, so much of his production came from the rushing, as you just highlighted here. And I look at that receiver room right now. This is the reason, Joel, I didn't want to really get excited about the Jameis Winston experience last week. I'm like, okay, he's going to be doing the Jameis Winston stuff, throwing the football downfield. Who's he throwing it to? He threw it to freaking Jalen Hyatt, who lost him the game at the end of it, just selling him on that corner route. Like, that's the Giants receiver core. It's kind of difficult if they dial back Dart as a rusher. Pretty difficult to get excited about this passing offense right now.
Yeah, totally. And this started off as a positive thing for me when I was originally going to do it. And then after the coach firing that last week over the bye, then it kind of became a negative because you're like, oh no, well, what if that number one usage dips a little bit? Because right now I wouldn't say it's a sell or a panic. It's more like, hey, check the box score, check his rushing throughout the game if you're watching it, see if they're still using him the same way this weekend.
Yeah, and it's mostly just the design stuff around the end zone. That's what we need. Obviously, we just need him scoring touchdowns. What is he scoring? 7 rushing touchdowns so far. So we don't need him taking off and being – basically every game. We don't need him being overly aggressive in the open field. This defense, though, in Detroit this week is definitely going to be tough. That Lions defense is really underrated and a really tough group. Good linebackers as well, so they should be able to keep him in check. Definitely a really critical game to watch. You won't think Giants against the Lions, really critical to watch. But from a fantasy standpoint, really critical to see how Dart is used and how he plays in this game. I like you calling this one out. I also like your second player here, Kenneth Walker, running back, Seattle Seahawks. Very curious to hear what you have to say about this one.
I know there's been a little bit of buzz. Mike McDonald kind of teasing hey, we should maybe get him a little bit more involved. He has been a little bit more involved already in some key areas. That's what I want to talk about. I know you made a joke on Twitter this week about him finally getting that goal line carry, but when they've both been active before the bye week, the goal line split was 9 carries for Charbonnet, 1 for Walker, and it's a very valuable spot to be in the Seattle offense. They have the 4th most points at the goal line for running backs. It's just all going to Charbonnet. But ever since that bye, the last 3 games, it's been 4-1. So that's flipped a little bit. Maybe not sticking 100%, but it's promising. And then in terms of the routes, the other thing, they don't really throw to running backs too much, but he bumped up from a 38% of the Seattle running back routes to now 56%. So a little bit better there. If it's just a few points per game difference, that could be really big, going from on the bench to a flyer flex to now that lower end RB2 if you can get up to 13 or 14 points per game.
So I'm going to just lay out my theory on this whole Kenneth Walker thing to you, and you tell me if this passes the sniff test. Because to me, Joel, I was kind of a draft centrist when it came to Walker and Charbonnet. There is usually a pro Walker camp and a pro Charbonnet camp. I was I kind of come down in the middle. I think both these guys are good picks, and I want to be invested in this run game. That was not a good take. Being invested in this run game has actually been bad. It has not been a good run game this year. But I'm not a Walker or Charbonnet guy. Again, I'm kind of a centrist here. And one of my theories, though, was that they were going to ease Kenneth Walker into the season. That's, to me, why Charbonnet has been used so much, because Walker doesn't he's not made it through a full season in the NFL yet. This is the healthiest he's been so far this year, and I think it's because of the less usage that he's gotten. But now it's time to go win games. It's time to go secure your playoff seeding. It's time for the biggest games of the year. To me, this is on record. I said it on 301. I've said it on this show before. I can just see a December to remember sort of run here for Kenneth Walker. And that's why that coach speak that you're highlighting sort of stood out to me this week. So we'll see what happens, but it at least does that pass the sniff test to you at all?
Yeah, I would say that's why I use the buy specifically. I can't get too excited. I was totally a Walker homeboy in terms of the off season. So loved him this season. It's not been super positive, obviously, but the volume, they run it a ton. The volume is there in terms of that team, at least in the percent of how much they're running it. There are just a couple different things missing, but if there's a couple different changes, it goes from that more of a negative situation, just running between the 20s and it doesn't really mean much, to maybe a little bit more receiving and goal line work that can really set them over the top and actually be usable.
Next 3 weeks, pretty good matchups here. Titans, Vikings, Falcons. So Walker, if he's going to get an expanded role, he has a chance to really start building that momentum towards the December to remember here for Kenneth Walker. So again, this is kind of just my fan fiction that I've built out in my head that I see this happening, and we'll just have to track if this is real or not. But I do like you bringing up that coach speak. We'll see if he can continue to get that expanded role. Let's get to your third player here. buzz is building about Kirk Cousins and the Falcons, Joel. I feel like panic and sadness and weeping is building about this situation.
That might be a better way to put it. Buzz as in news, not maybe buzz as in positive news. News in general, though, with Michael Penix getting injured yet again, ACL yet again. How does it look for Drake London and Bijan Robinson? The short answer is not nearly as good. If we're looking at the points per game for London these last 2 seasons, it's about 50-50 in terms of his games with Penix and with Cousins. And in those games, 16.9 points per game with Penix, down to 12.4 in half PPR with Cousins. The yards per route takes a big dip. The air yards, about 40 yards less per game, just less of a downfield attack, especially when it comes to London.
Yeah. I really worry Drake London's just not going to play again this season either, because I just wonder how quickly things can spiral for this Falcons team. He's obviously dealing with the PCL injury, and I just think Kirk is pretty close to done at this point, and that really worries me from a London perspective. Bijan, obviously, it's going to take some of the teeth out of the run game because he doesn't move as much. I am curious if you have any optimism left for Darnell Mooney or even like a Kyle Pitts type, who did actually get a lot of targets last time Kirk Cousins started.
Maybe a little bit for Pitts, but not so in terms of like actually starting him weekly or being a top 10 guy. Like he might be like that flyer tight end you can use just because of that volume. It hasn't been bad even with Penix sometimes. Mooney, not so much, just because I don't really trust Cousins too much in this offense. This is the same situation that we've seen before. So I feel like a couple of these quarterbacks that are the veteran backups, like a Joe Flacco, like a Brissett, if we look at just the numbers, they weren't supposed to be good. And I kind of fell for that with Flacco. Like, look at the Browns, and he moves over to a different situation, and it sparks something. Brissett, if you looked at the last time he was starting, it was really bad. But then when he goes to the Cardinals, suddenly he's a top 12 quarterback every single week somehow. And it's the same situation for Kirk Cousins. So I feel like that's a little bit like we kind of maybe know what's going to happen a little bit more, because we've seen him both in this offense this year, but also last year, and it hasn't necessarily been good.
Yeah, I'm going to say 2 decent matchups here, Saints, Jets, the next 2 weeks, but he had pretty much the spot of all spots the last time he got to start, did Kirk Cousins against the Miami Dolphins, and we all know how that went for both him and Darnell Mooney, who we're showing on the screen here right now. Let's get to your 4th player this week, Ricky Pearsall, San Francisco 49ers wide receiver.
Yeah, I feel like I get he just had 0 points. But even before that point, I feel like there was a low amount of hype on Ricky Pearsall, which I was kind of surprised with how he started the season. Those first 3 games, he didn't have a touchdown, so he's wide receiver 16. If you just go off the receiving points that weren't touchdowns, which, eventually will happen, he can score those, it was the wide receiver 6. So he came back last week. Shanahan talked about how he's not really a full go, more so after the game or at halftime. But he still ran all the routes. So still with Jennings, still with Jennings and Kittle up there, ran all the routes. But he is that downfield receiver. He's a top 5 guy in terms of those deep targets per game, but none of the screens, that sort of thing. So maybe a little bit more volatile. But I went back and looked, and he had a couple opportunities there. Like Purdy was late to him in the goal line when he could have had a touchdown. There was another one where he was open deep for a touchdown, and Purdy was just under pressure. A couple spots like that where I could see it being a different day than what it was.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a big Pearsall guy, so any Pearsall hype on the internet, it was coming from me. Don't know why I wasn't there in other circles, but yeah, I think this last game, you could sort of see this coming, right? Where he's a full go, he's out there from a full snaps perspective, but they didn't even know for sure he was going to play until later in the week, so he wasn't really installed into the game plan. And I mean, you tell me if you saw the same thing, but to me, when I went back and watched Pearsall, it's a lot of he's clearing space for other people, which,
yes,
in this
100%.
game against the Cardinals, you can do that because they blew out the Cardinals. That was not a competitive game. We'll see what it looks like against Carolina in Week 12 on Monday Night Football, but I certainly think that looks like a much better spot for Ricky Pearsall. He's likely going to move around a little bit more too. He's pretty much just tethered to the outside in this game, so I know it was a disappointing outing last week, but it sounds like, Joel, we're kind of saying, hey, Ricky Pearsall, let's be patient and see what happens this week.
Yeah, totally. And it's not the greatest matchup in the world, but I just trust this offense. And fantasy, When you're talking dynasty, like you want those guys in the good offenses long term. And long term, this San Francisco offense has been like this. They've been amazing in terms of fantasy points. This year, you wouldn't think about it because you think about like who they've been throwing to. Kittle for half a season, CMC, Jennings. They have the third most receiving fantasy points on the year, with Purdy being out half the season too. So they're still like up there in a year where they haven't really had anybody. So if you can get a guy that's the wide receiver one in this offense, if he does go back to getting like 8 targets per game, say, then we could see a run like we saw at the end of last year that was winning people leagues.
And this defense stinks. So they're going to be in some big time heavy passing game scripts. They got matchups with the Panthers, the Browns in week 13. Then they go on bye in week 14. They're a late bye team, but then they come back and play Titans, Colts, Bears in the fantasy playoffs. So there's definitely some spots there for a man coverage winner like Ricky Pearsall. I think Juwan Jennings will be solid too. I just think all the pieces of this offense are going to give you some good weeks towards the rest of the season just because of the environment, everything we're seeing here. So definitely frustrating return from Ricky Pearsall, but I think it's going to be much better on Monday night. Your last player here, fifth and final guy. We finally got some proof that he still exists on planet Earth this week. That is Trey Benson, Cardinals running back.
Yeah, him and Bucky Irving. I have to like Google search every single day because I can never find anything. So I was happy that Benson, there's some positive news now. Maybe he's coming back because 2 different things. 1, the volume potential, and then 2, the playoff schedule. The first 4 weeks with him and Connor, if you combine their expected fantasy points per game, I would give Benson, say, 75%, or if he got 75% of that workload, it would be the RB6 in volume. So really good volume in that backfield when you combine it. If you just give him the 3/4, which I would say is close to what he might get, and if it's not, then still like RB1 level. So really good volume there. But then I was thinking like, oh, with Brissett in there now, the running backs are a bunch of no names. Has the volume really been as good? If you combine all the Arizona running backs right now, if you gave him 75% of that, it would be better. He would be the RB2 level volume with the current Arizona backfield if he got 75% of the work, which I would expect it to be, again, somewhat around that. But if it's not, then you're still expecting like that RB1 level volume. And he was a guy that was efficient. He was number 2 in yards after contact per attempt this year. So he was efficient, has a lot of volume potential, and an interesting playoff schedule too.
Yeah, the playoff schedule, he's got the Texans week 15, but then Falcons week 16, Bengals week 17. Man, imagine that. Trey Benson week 17, Bengals defense. He's winning people fantasy titles, Joel. I can see it.
Totally. He's one of those like interesting buys if you have the fantasy buy in the playoffs, like you're one of those top 2 seeds. You don't really want to play him against the Texans, but after that, Atlanta and Cincinnati both bottom 5 against running backs right now.
And we've just seen with Jacoby Brissett in there, just so much more play volume. They're number 1 in passing yards per game with Jacoby Brissett under center, which is an outrageous sentence to hear a human being say in the year 2025, but it is a true one. So Trey Benson, really like that. He's just been completely absent for so long. I think he's been a little out of sight, out of mind. So that's why you listen to this segment. That's why you check out Joel Smith's work so that you can remember some of these guys that are getting some buzz building. Joel, appreciate you doing this as always. That is going to do it for us today. Thanks again to Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, who's all in all season. And don't forget to check out Toyota's game day giveaways for your chance to win. Joel, what do you got working on right now that the people can check out?
Got some fantasy playoff defense and kicker stuff out. So YouTube video, a full breakdown of the defense schedule if you need to stash a couple, and then just released one on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff for kickers for fantasy playoffs.
Oh my God. Are the TikTok streets begging for, fantasy kicker takes? Is that where we're at this point?
For some reason. I always like, maybe I won't do a kicker video this year. And then for some reason, it's like one of the most viewed videos at the start of the season. I don't know why, but people need to know who's playing in the domes and who's playing in Buffalo at the end of the year.
Wow. Well, you know what, pal? You've cornered the market on that one. So shout out to you for being their guy. That is why people love you. That they're like, Joel Smith is my guy, because you're giving them the stuff that I couldn't possibly spend a single second thinking about that. So you're in the trenches. Joel's out there. If you need to know fantasy kickers, check out Joel on social media. He is going to be able to give you that stuff. TikTok, Instagram, as you mentioned, everything. So make sure you're following all of his work. We will be back on this show tomorrow. Justin Boone is back with us to preview week 12 of the NFL season. That's going to be live right here, 5 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Until then, we are out.